are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome back to this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles. Really excited to introduce my next guest on the show, one of the best quarterback evaluators in the game. We've had him on the show before, a good friend of Locked On Eagles. It's Mark Schofield, at Mark Schofield on Twitter, NFL analyst on SB Nation. How's it going, Mark?
I'm doing well, Mr. DiBiase. It is great to be here with you, Louie. I'm excited to dive into Jalen Hurts. We were talking a little bit before the show. Eagles are undefeated, which is obviously fantastic. And, you know, for the general Philadelphia sports fan, this is a fun time. I won't mention the first game of the season for the Sixers. I won't.
Yes.
I won't go there. But look, Phillies are in the NLCS. Obviously, the Eagles are undefeated. It is a great time to be a Philadelphia sports fan. It is a great time to be with you, my friend.
Absolutely, Mark. And I feel like I kind of said this on the show the other day. It's almost unexpected the way all these Philly teams are at the top of their leagues. I don't think anybody planned on, somebody like Jalen Hurts being the franchise quarterback. Even the team themselves, they believed in him to a certain degree, but they've each year been preparing other alternative routes. What about you? Like seeing him break out in these 6 games to start the season. Are you surprised with how improved he's been specifically as a passer?
I mean, I was cautiously optimistic coming into the season that he was going to take that step that Eagles fans were hoping to see. I mean, part of it was, look, second straight season in the same offense, which is always huge for a quarterback. I know you've got some ties to the Buffalo area, and you saw with Josh Allen, we've seen what that consistency around the quarterback position means to a young quarterback. So that made me optimistic. His play in the second half of the year made me optimistic coming into the season. And then, look, I mean, even with that, I think it's been crazy to sort of see what we've seen from him so far. I mean, I remember after the week 1 game against Detroit, I wrote a piece over at SB Nation saying, hey, he's starting to do some things that we were hoping to see. And even Eagles fans pushed back at me, saying, oh, no, he ran too much. Like, we're not seeing it. And then you saw that in week 2, one of my favorite throws of his this year was that first third down conversion where he hit A.J. Brown on that deep curl where it's like, yep, he's got pressure coming. You'd expect him to tuck it and go if this was last year, but resets and throws for the pocket, which was a huge thing to see. And it's been a huge thing for his development. And so while I was sort of optimistic coming in, his success to date obviously has even surpassed what I was hoping to see from him. So I think you're right in that this team always has given themselves like some extra pathways, that sort of hedge to Jalen Hurts. The trade with this to get that extra first round pick in next year's draft was a part of that. It was giving themselves the out. If Hurts didn't take this step forward, hey, now we've got 2 first rounders we can package to get up for Stroud, Levis, Hooker, Young, whoever you like in next year's draft. Now they don't have to do that. And now I see Eagles fans saying, hey, we could add Will Anderson.
That's what I said today.
Next year. I saw that. And it's like, man, I mean, to have that flexibility now is obviously huge. Of course, look, there's a lot of football left to be played, but right now it's like you got your franchise quarterback. Hurts has taken that step, and it's fantastic to see if you're an Eagles fan.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and they currently have the 4th overall pick after the Saints lost again on Thursday night to the Arizona Cardinals. And, we always said this was the best case scenario, and I think that was the perfect word you used, Mark, was cautious optimism, because Hurts has taken a step up every single year from Alabama to Oklahoma, from Doug Peterson's system in 2020 to Nick Sirianni's last year. But I think we were wondering if he could take this big of a leap. And how is he doing it? Like when you've watched him through 6 games, what is the biggest change you've noticed that's led to his efficiency specifically as a passer? Are there specific things that he's worked on, especially from last year?
Yeah, I mean, certainly one big part of it is the pocket management piece, because and it's a tough thing for athletic quarterbacks to balance. And I always kind of phrase it this way. Like if you're a Lamar Jackson, if you're a Kyler Murray, if you're a Jalen Hurts, every season before you got to the NFL, you've been the most athletic person on the field. Like, even when he was playing at Alabama or Oklahoma, like he was probably one of, if not the most athletic person on the field. And so if he didn't like something in the passing game, if he didn't like how a route looked or how a coverage looked, he could just say, I'll pull it down and run. Like, we're going to get a first down. When you get to the NFL, it's different. Like you've got guys like Von Miller, you've got guys like the Bosa brothers, you've got guys like Khalil Mack and Micah Parsons on the other side of the field. Like you try to pull it down and run to the edge, they're going to chase you down. And what was a 10-yard gain in college is a 1-yard loss in the NFL. So you've got to learn to balance that athleticism and the opportunities that you can create with your legs with staying in the pocket and making throws. And that was a big part of the puzzle with Hurts, like say early last year, was getting him to sort of, it's 3rd and 12, bring the ball back down, rehitch, make a read and make a throw. And you started to see that in the Denver game last year. That throw he had to Goddard on a dig was the moment where I thought it sort of clicked in his mind. And you're seeing more of that this year. And I also think his pre-snap to post-snap diagnosis has been a lot better this year. And that's something that sometimes you just need time and reps and experience and, opportunities against different coverage rotations to sort of say, okay, now I see. Okay, last year, that rotation, it got me. I didn't think they were going to do that. I'm used to it now. I'm experienced. I've seen it. I can diagnose and decipher that. That's been a big part of his play too. Now, there are still moments. There are some moments where Arizona showed him. Like there was one play where they sent Devonta Smith in motion. Defender Isaiah Simmons trails him, and he's thinking, all right, this is man coverage. I'm seeing all sorts of man coverage. And then they drop into zone because defenses are doing a really good job at, oh, you think this is man, but it's really zone. Or, oh, you send somebody in motion, nobody's trailing it. You think it's zone, but we're still playing man. Defenses are getting very good at sort of, disguising what they're doing. So there are still moments where Hurts, like other quarterbacks, are getting tricked by stuff like that. So he needs to keep getting better at it. But in years past, he wouldn't have figured that out at all. Now it's like, okay, I need a second or two extra after the snap to sort of figure that out. And so that pre-snap to post-snap diagnosis is a much improved part of his game as well.
Yeah, he just feels so much more in control this year, decisive. I think his ball placement, his accuracy has been really impressive too. I mean, I think increased his completion percentage from last year by like 6% at this point. And I feel like too, Mark, even when he is running outside the pocket, last year he would have tucked and ran for 5-6 yards. Maybe it's because he's got AJ Brown now and there's an added emphasis on getting his playmakers the football. But even when he's running, you've noticed the last few weeks outside the numbers, he still is throwing and keeping his eyes downfield. And I think that's a huge part too.
Yeah, he's running, or actually it's better phrased this way. He's moving to throw.
Yes.
Whereas in years past, he was moving to run. He was moving off of his spot with the idea. And it gets back to what we were talking about earlier. I'm an athlete. I'm explosive. I can create with my legs. He was moving to run. Now he's moving to set up an extra throw downfield, an extra read downfield. Then part of it might be the AJ Brown factor because he knows I've now got that security blanket. Like we know each other. We've got that built-in chemistry coming into the season. And so he knows, look, I can move off the spot. I can create a scramble drill moment, but he's going to be where I expect him to be so I can keep my eyes downfield. But part of it is just that comfort factor in knowing, look, I can move off the spot, but I don't have to do something with my legs. Guys are going to be where I hope they're going to be downfield, whether it's AJ Brown, whether it's Smith, Watkins, Goddard, whomever. I've got an opportunity to create. So he's moving in the pocket, not to just run, but to set up an explosive play in the passing game.
That's a great way to put it. And Mark, I feel like too, he is still making such an impact as a running quarterback. I mean, you see the lanes Miles Sanders has had this year and Kenneth Gainwell against Dallas. Linebackers are terrified, it feels like, to fill these gaps because they're concerned Hurts is going to pull it and get to the edge. I just feel like the decision-making of when to run versus when to pass and when to open up the pass with his legs is just more on point than years past. Is there, I don't know if this is, maybe it's an interesting question to me because you look at past MVP caliber quarterbacks, right? Hurts right now, according to our official sportsbook Bet Online, he's second in MVP odds behind Josh Allen. Is there a quarterback that had a similar breakout season or an MVP type of year that has a similar impact of what Hurts is doing? Is there anybody he reminds you of in that way?
I mean, you could probably look at Lamar, right? I mean,
2019 Lamar,
yeah. I mean, the year that he won his MVP, you look at what Lamar did. I mean, 66.1% completion percentage, throws for over 1,000 yards. But then you look at what he did as a runner too. You factor that in. It's a kind of season that we're seeing from Jalen Hurts this year, where he has that impact both as a runner and as a thrower. And it goes beyond just, say, Jackson's rushing yards or Jalen Hurts' rushing yards. It's like you said, those running lanes that he opens up for the rest of the offense, right? Because if you think about the sort of too high world we're all living in, right? Like defense is playing too high. They're keeping both safeties deep. One of the things about Philadelphia, and Ben Solak has talked about this and written about this and dove into this at an extremely high level because Ben's so great at what he does, is when you can run effectively out of shotgun, that's huge for an offense. Because I'm sure everybody listening to this saw that great piece over at NFL Live with Dan Orlovsky and Marcus Spears talking
Yeah.
about, the difference from a defensive point of view when you see that quarterback under center versus you see that quarterback aligned in the shotgun. You're expecting pass when they're in the shotgun. When you can run out of shotgun looks, that's huge. When you can run out of shotgun looks, but really flip the numbers in your advantage as an offense, not only because the defense has two safeties deep, but because you can leave a defender unblocked because of the quarterback's threat and that sort of zone read look where you can leave a defender unblocked. You've already got a numbers advantage in the box with the bodies. You've got a numbers advantage in the box with the gaps too, because of the quarterback's threat as a runner. That's huge for an offense. And so you put all that together and you're talking about not just as a thrower, but as a runner and the impact on the offense and what the defense can and cannot not account for. Hurts is a huge weapon for this offense.
Mark, do you think that's why maybe the Eagles are having more success on offense than other teams? Because in this new too high era, they're so run centric and even through the shotgun that's what's throwing defenses off. Like, why is it that the Eagles are succeeding so much more on offense than a lot of teams right now? I mean, outside of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, even Lamar Jackson's had ups and downs this year. The quarterback play in general and just offense overall has been extremely inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing scoring down league wide.
Yeah.
We're seeing, I did a piece recently looking at, I forget exactly what I was looking at, but I was looking at passers last year versus this year. And, Ben Baldwin, the RBS DM website, which is a fantastic resource, he has the quarterback efficiency charts, which he puts up, and you could just push a couple buttons, boom, you got it for a week to week season, however you want to break it down. And the numbers in both EPA per dropback and, CPOE, completion percentage over expectation, they're much lower this year across the league than they were last year. And part of it, I think, is the too high world we're living in because defenses are saying, look, we dare you to run the football. We don't want your quarterback throwing it. We want to turn that quarterback into a spectator. But the Eagles can flip the script back and say, fine, we can run the football. We'll run it out of shotgun. We'll do whatever we want to do in the run game, and we'll dare you to stay in too high because we're comfortable running the football. We're comfortable running with Jalen Hurts and really flipping the numbers in our advantage like we just talked about. And then the defense brings down that safety, eventually says, look, we can't play along because they're so effective. That's when you can hit shot plays with the outside. That's when you can hit defenses over the top. And I think, what the Eagles are able to do out of gun in the run game and sometimes throwing the football against those looks and saying, you know what, you're going to give us that stick. We'll take it. We'll take 2nd and 2 because we trust our run game. Or we get a run on first down for 8 yards at 2nd and 2. We'll take that stick throw for a 1st and 10 and start the fresh set of downs all over again. And so I think that's part of it, is that what they can do out of the gun in the run game, what they can do in the run game, what Hurts can do, is it's where you need to be as an offense right now, unless you have, say, Mahomes or Allen in this too high world we're living in.
And Mark, it feels like two defenses are almost going all in on attacking the Eagles in an opposite way the last few weeks. I think blitzes have really been an emphasis, and they've struggled with that. And what is the fix there? Because I do feel like the last 2 weeks, especially against Jacksonville, Arizona, and Dallas, have done a great job in the second half, getting Hurts off his spot and getting him down with extra pressure. Is that a Hurts thing? Is it an offensive line thing? Is it a coaching thing with hot routes? Like, what is the fix to kind of push these defenses back a little bit?
Yeah, and I mean, look, you look at adjusted completion percentage, Pro Football Focus, when pressured right now, and it's 57.6 from Jalen Hurts, which is 28th in the league amongst qualified passers. It's just behind Kirk Cousins, just ahead of Skylar Thompson and Tom Brady, interestingly enough, another offense. That's sort of struggling. But I think, Louie, it's the hot route thing. I think I'm not too worried about this offensive line, and I don't think it's sort of a Jalen Hurts thing. I have noticed a couple of times it Hurts, and again, gets us back to the athletic quarterback. Sometimes when he gets blitzed, tries to solve it first with athleticism rather than just say getting the ball out, throwing a hot. But I think there has to be, over the next couple of weeks, more of an emphasis on making sure you've got your hot reads from a quarterback perspective, from a coaching perspective, from a offensive player, receiver, tight end perspective. Make sure you've got those down, because like you said, Arizona, recently Dallas, like teams are going to say, hey, we can pressure them. If we bring pressure, that might be the recipe of slowing down what this offense is doing. So you're going to see more of that. So making sure going forward, everybody's on the same page on those hot reads, making sure everybody's eyes are where they need to be and they're aware of what they're reading when pressure comes. I think that's going to be huge for this offense going forward.
regardless, the offense still having a lot of success. They're atop the league in explosive plays, atop the league in turnover differential. They're undefeated, 6-0 for the first time since 2004. Mark, my last question for you, because the Eagles are at the top of the NFC, and we've mentioned the quarterback play has been off, the NFL in general right now, outside of Kansas City, Buffalo, even some teams still wonder if Philadelphia can sustain this level of play. It's been very up and down. Of all the teams, let's stick in the NFC here. Of all the teams that have been up and down in the NFC that you maybe expected to be a top tier team, who's the one you think eventually is going to snap out of this funk? Is there a specific team that comes to mind for you?
I mean, I'm curious about Dallas to see what they look like with Dak coming back,
yeah,
and see what that offense looks like in his hands. And I think, given everything we've sort of talked about, right, with scoring being down and, everything that's happened across the league, Dallas has a very good defense. They have a very good defense. Micah Parsons is a fantastic talent. They might have a winning recipe in today's NFL to win some 17-14 type rock fight kinds of games. And so I'm curious to see what that team looks like. It's hard for me as a Boston guy, as a Patriots guy, to count out Tom Brady. I mean, look, he's obviously going through a lot. We've seen it. You can see it in his face right now that he's going through a lot. But it's hard for me to believe that team at 3-3, that he's just going to say, look, we're done, and just fold the tents. I think it would not surprise me at all to see Tampa Bay make a run. The one I'm kind of worried about is Green Bay. They seem to have a lot going on both sides of the football. Coming into the year, we thought their defense is going to be so good that, if it takes Rodgers time to get on the same page with Watson and Dobbs and all these new receivers that they've got, that the defense is going to sort of carry them. That has not been the case. And there's a lot of sort of hand-wringing about their defensive coordinator right now. So I'm very worried about them. I know Minnesota's 5-1, not quite buying them yet. I sat down this week to study Kirk Cousins with every intention of writing hey, Cousins and the Vikings are for real piece, and I couldn't quite get there because I just don't really see it yet. So I'm, jury's out on them. But Tampa Bay, it's hard for me to count out Tom Brady, and obviously Dak now coming back to Dallas. Kind of still curious to see what they look like.
I agree. I said the same thing on yesterday's show. I think Tampa Bay would be the one team if the Eagles are watching out for somebody that can threaten them for this top seed, and the team maybe you don't want to see in the playoffs right away would probably still be the Buccaneers. Mark Schofield joining me on the Locked On Eagles podcast, an awesome NFL and quarterback specifically analyst for SB Nation. You can follow all his work on Twitter at Mark Schofield. Mark, as always, man, thanks so much for coming on the show, and we'll talk soon again. I mean, Jalen Hurts looks amazing, so definitely going to want your insight moving forward.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it already, my friend. Have a fantastic day. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.